Looking for a healthier twist on your tuna salad? Join us to learn how to swap your fats. Welcome back. We're continuing with our Mediterranean series. So continuing along with that Mediterranean diet and transitioning to going med. So today we're going to be talking about how to swap your fats and choose healthier fats that are really good for our body. So we've got two different recipes today. We have a Mediterranean tuna salad, which is a little bit of a different spin. We use olive oil instead of mayonnaise. And then we also have a spicy roasted cauliflower. So we're going to start off with that cauliflower first. And what you need is just one head of cauliflower. Of course, rinse it first really well. And a few tricks here of just how to cut your cauliflower. So we always want to use that nice sharp chef's knife. This is about 8 inches, and a sharp knife is your best friend. So start off with that nice sharp chef's knife, and you're just going to come in and slowly work your way around the florets. And then you'll just rotate it and move any excess leaves that there might be. And you'll discard that. And then we'll just cut these in half to be just a little bit smaller. And you don't want these to be really big. You just want to have one little small piece of your floret there. So we're just chopping these into smaller pieces. And we'll continue on with this big piece here, working our way around. And you can always save these stems to use later in a stew, to make a vegetable broth. You could compost them, so definitely hang on to those to use later. This is a really great recipe to also do with kids, because you can just go ahead and cut it up, and then you can have the kids help to break this apart. So great way to involve your children as well, grandchildren, any of that. So we've got our pieces nice and small. You want them to be more of a bite-sized piece because you don't want a big old chunk that you have to bite into. And we're just gonna throw this into a bowl together. Very simple. And I love roasted vegetables. So this is one of our go-tos in my house. We make roasted vegetables all the time. And roasting the vegetables helps to give it a nice char and give it just an extra rich flavor that you don't get with it when it's raw or even when it's cooked on a stove top, sauteed, steamed, things like that. Roasting is an entirely different flavor. And to me, roasted vegetables taste the best. So I throw them in tacos. I throw them in any other recipe that I may have. I'll just throw those in if they're excess. So you can make a big batch of roasted vegetables and just use them for the entire week. So this is a really good recipe for that. So we've got our cauliflower chopped up. We're gonna move on. We have a couple different spices here. So this is cayenne and cumin. Now the recipe calls for a teaspoon of cumin and a teaspoon of cayenne. Cayenne can be really, really hot. So I didn't want to go quite so hot with this, so I just did about half a teaspoon of cayenne. This is your recipe. We always say recipes aren't rules, so you make it what you like. If you know certain spices that you enjoy, stick with that. If a whole teaspoon sounds like a little bit too much, cut back. So make this what you want. We're gonna throw in our salt and pepper into the other spice mixture, and we've got about half a teaspoon of pepper and a teaspoon of salt here. So I'm just gonna mix those up so they're nice and mixed together. And then I'm just gonna drizzle this over my cauliflower. And then we're gonna add in olive oil. And this is about, the recipe calls for 1/3 cup of olive oil. Again, recipes aren't rules. I thought that was a little bit much for this, so I just stuck to about 1/4 cup of olive oil. And the big change up here is that we're not using butter. So we're using those unsaturated fats that are really great for our body. And you've heard me say this before, but we talk about your drain. If you don't want to pour fat down your drain, right? Because it's going to clog your pipes. Same thing. We don't want to consume those solid fats. We want to start consuming those fats that are liquid at room temperature, and those are going to be our unsaturated fats that are really good for our cholesterol. They help to lower your bad cholesterol, your LDL, and they increase your HDL, which we call our happy cholesterol. So we want to make sure that we have lots of those unsaturated fats for that reason. All right, so really simple here. We're gonna take this, throw it on our pan. And now the difference here is that you don't want your cauliflower to touch. When we're roasting, you wanna make sure that you don't have any of your pieces touching, and that way it'll roast, it won't steam the cauliflower. So there's a big difference there in your flavor when we're roasting versus steaming. So just move that around. Again, another great activity for kids to do in the kitchen with you. So you could have them help to make sure none of the cauliflower touches, and it'll be a great little job for them, keep them busy. And when we involve kids in the kitchen, it just helps them to learn and be encouraged to cook at home themselves. So it'll teach them those life skills that are so, so important. All right, so got a little bit too small of a pan for our cauliflower, but we're making it work. And we are gonna load this up in the oven, and then we will be good to go.
You're out for an evening on the town. Finally a chance to relax and forget that you left your front door completely unlocked. Fortunately, you just installed a security system from Star Communications. With just your cell phone, you can check on your house, lock it down, light it up, and get back to relaxing.
You forgot to put Buster in his crate.
Unfortunately, we can't help with that. Security and automation from Star Communications. Call today to find out more.
All right, so we had our oven set to 425, and now the recipe calls for it to be set about 400 degrees, and you cook this for an hour. We did 425, upped it a little bit to decrease that cooking time, and I did about 20 to 25 minutes in the oven. And you can see here what that looks like. So if you want it to be a little bit more charred, you can do a recipe that's even a little bit longer, keep it in the oven for a little bit longer. Or if you want it to be a little less charred, you could cook it less time. So again, recipes aren't rules. You make this what you want and what your family enjoys. So we had one on backup that I went ahead and pulled out of the oven for you. And you can see there's a little bit of brown there from where it's roasted in the oven. Kind of helps to caramelize that cauliflower and just give it really, really good flavor. Now I did want to mention that in the recipe it calls for coriander. That's something I could not find in our grocery store. So make this, adjust it to what you have on hand. So I did have chili powder. I could have added that to it for a little bit more spice. If you think cayenne is a little too hot, you could do chili powder instead because it's not quite as hot as cayenne pepper. So there are a few adjustments you can make to this recipe here, but great recipe to have on hand. You can make a batch of this and just have it for the week, throw it in different recipes that you're gonna be making throughout the week. So we're gonna transition over to our Mediterranean tuna salad, and we've got a couple different things that are going into that tuna salad over here. So first thing that we want to start with is going to be our tuna. And here we want to make sure that we are using the chunk light tuna. And this is going to be buy the cheapest tuna that you can find. Now there are some that say albacore tuna, things like that. You want to get chunk light, and we also want to make sure that it's packed in water. So this one is packed in water, or it could be packed in oil. Just make sure it says vegetable oil or something like that. I prefer the water because I want to add that stuff myself and adjust that flavor myself. So that's what we used. We just used 2 cans of that, and I just went ahead and put that into our bowl. here, you want to make sure you drain the tuna really well. And then we're just going to flake this off. So you'll just take your fork and just move it around to flake off that tuna. And that way it's going to be spread out. You want a little piece of tuna in every single bite. So you don't want to have this big chunk throughout your tuna salad. So make sure that it's nice and flaked really well. Again, another great thing that kids can do in the kitchen. So both of these recipes are really great to involve your family in. All right, so that's pretty good. So next we're gonna add some vegetables. Now this tuna salad is loaded with vegetables, and I like to make sure that the vegetables are cut really, really finely. That way you're getting a little bit of different vegetables in every single bite. So what we're gonna start with here is our carrots. And I went ahead and used a food processor for half of these carrots. You only want about 2, and you want about half a cup. So depending on how large your carrots are, that could depend. You want maybe 2 medium carrots and about half a cup of minced carrots for this. So if you want to use a food processor, go for it. You could absolutely do that. But if you don't have a food processor on hand, I'm going to show you how to cut this properly. So make sure we're grabbing that knife at the kind of the base of the knife blade. That way it'll give you a lot of control so that it's not going to fling out of your hand. If you hold it back here, you don't have as much control and you're more likely to hit your fingers or something like that. So have that nice control, and then we're going to do our rocking motion. So holding that carrot with the other hand, we're just going to rock the knife back and forth. And then once we get it all into our smaller pieces, we'll cut it up even more finely. And just do that rocking motion yet again. And then whenever we're using our blade on our knife, we want to make sure we're using the back of the knife blade. If you're going to be using the actual blade itself, then you are going to be dulling your knife, and you don't want to do that. So we just want to chop this up really fine. And you can also buy the carrots that are already chopped up. So if you want to, or shredded carrots, you can absolutely do that just to help cut back on some time. But if you're looking for a cheaper option, then carrots, the whole carrots in the bag, or the carrots where you just buy one at a time, is going to be a better option for you. So just chopping this really fine. Like I said, you want it to be small pieces so that you have a little bit in every single bite. And then we're just going to add this into our salad with our tuna. So yet again, we want to scrape with the back of the blade so we don't dull our knife. And we are just going to throw that in. And then when we come back, we'll finish up with our other vegetables.
Sweetie, will you turn that down, please?
Keep life exciting, even when it's not. Watch TV everywhere from Star Communications.
All right, so we're back. We're going to finish up with our Mediterranean tuna salad. So next we're going to move on to our celery. So we've got about a half a cup of minced carrots added to our tuna. And again, with our celery, if you want to, you could process this in a food processor to make it finely minced. Up to you. If you don't have a food processor, that's okay. I'll show you some tricks here. So what I like to do is go ahead and cut my celery into a couple pieces. So here I've cut it into 3 little pieces. And then same concept, making sure we're grabbing that knife properly. And then we just rock the knife on the board and slowly move your fingers as you get closer. So we've also seen where sometimes chefs will curl their fingers under. As long as we're moving those fingers out of the way, that is A-okay. That's our goal. We just don't want to hit those fingers. So then we are going to use the back of the blade and chop it more finely again. And it's up to you with how small you want to go with this. That's pretty good to me, so I think we're just going to leave it at that, throw that into our salad. And then I do have a little bit more already cut up. So this is about 2 stalks of celery or half a cup of celery. And we'll throw all that in together. All right, next we have our yellow bell pepper. And you could use any color here. Yellow or red I think would be really pretty with this dish. Just thinking about the colors, we want to eat the colors of the rainbow. Same thing we tell kids we need to do for ourselves. So make sure that we are using a nice bright color, maybe something that we don't already have in our salad. So for this, we're just going to top it and tail it. And then you take the top of the pepper and you actually can just push this out really easily. So that way you can utilize that entire top of the pepper as well. And you can discard that, throw it into some compost if you'd like. And that one was really seedy. So we've got a lot of seeds here, but that's all right. We'll just move those out of the way and get what we can out. And then, so now we're able to use the top and the bottom of the bell pepper. Next, we are going to take this and cut a small slit in the side and then just slowly roll that open to remove that meaty inside. And we're done with that. I'm going to push all my seeds off of my cutting board so we don't get all those in our salad. All right, so working with the top first, we're just going to use that rocking motion yet again. I'm actually going to flip this over. It's a little easier. This is an older bell pepper. It's not quite as fresh, which makes it a little more difficult to work with. So you just pick which side is easier to cut from, whether it's that outside, exterior, or the inside. Inside seems to be just a little bit easier to control. Again, you could absolutely do this as well in a food processor once you get those seeds out. So it is up to you on what you have on hand. I know some people aren't really gadget people. I love gadgets, but I also don't really like cleaning. So if I only have to clean a cutting board rather than also a food processor, one less step, right? So again, up to you on how small you want to make those pieces. That looks pretty good to me. And this is the same where we only want about half a cup. So I'm just going to use the top and the bottom here and save that meaty inside for later. And again, watching those fingers. And chop the other way. And I know some people have different preferences in terms of the bell pepper colors. I know some people find that one might give them more indigestion than the other. So just keep that in mind. You have flexibility with this to make it what works best for you. All right, so that should be about half a cup. And then next we just have some olives, and we only need about a quarter cup of these minced. So I have a can of olives. I went ahead and drained them. I also rinsed them. And now if you go ahead and rinse them, it can remove about 30 to 40% of that added sodium in any canned item. So canned vegetables, olives, whatever you may be using. So we did that to reduce that salt. If you don't like olives, you could do pickles instead. Would be really good in this tuna salad. I love olives, so we're gonna stick with the recipe with this one. All right, there you have it, about 1/4 cup. You can measure this if you want to get really exact, but if you wanted to use this whole can, go for it. If you think, what else am I going to use the rest of these olives for? You don't have to use just exactly 1/4 cup. You could use the whole bell pepper. So you can adjust this to your taste buds. All right, so when we come back, we'll finish up with our onion, our olive oil, and a couple spices, and our salad will be all ready to go.
After completing my contract, I still have to buy out of it? Come on. Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping home secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
All right, so we've got our olives, our bell pepper, our celery, and our carrots in with our tuna. So next we're gonna add some onion. Now, one trick for our onion is we want to always keep our hair. So keep that root of your onion. That will help you not to cry. You might still cry. I still cry a little bit because onions just, sometimes they get you, right? So that will help a little bit if you keep the root, and that'll help keep it all intact. So I went ahead and removed the other end, I guess would be the stem, and took that outside part off and then rinsed my onion as well. So for our vegetables, we just want to rinse them in water. We don't need to use anything extra to clean our vegetables. Sometimes you might want to add a little bit of friction when you are rinsing those vegetables to help get anything that might be on there off, but you don't need to use vinegar or any type of other cleaner to clean your vegetables. So keep that in mind. Water is just good, it works great, and a little bit of friction can go a long way. So for our onion, I like to go ahead and cut this in half. There's several different ways that you can actually, my knife isn't quite as sharp as I'd like it to be, several different ways that you could actually cut an onion. So I cut it in half, and that way you have a flat surface to work with. If you keep it whole, then it's kind of hard to keep control of that, and you're more likely to hit something. So, and I'm gonna use the smaller side because we don't need a whole lot of this. So we're gonna cut that in half. Again, we still have our root there, so it should help us not to cry. And then we are just going to make a few cuts right in those grooves. And then you're just gonna come the other way and start to chop. So this will help to reduce the amount of time that you have an onion in front of you, which can also help you to reduce the amount you cry. I already feel the tears welling up a little bit though. So you'll still have some tears. I'm not saying that's a cure-all, but it does reduce it a little bit. So like I said, we only want about 1/4 cup of onion here. Shoo, it's a little strong. All right, and then we're just gonna throw that into our bowl. And I'm not gonna use a whole lot of this. Now, if onions do bother you, you could absolutely just do the celery. That'll be just fine as well. So we've got we'll switch these out. We've got our salad nicely put together here. And we're just gonna mix that up to make it look nice and pretty. Tons of colors. And I'll tell you guys a secret, I don't like tuna salad, but I love this recipe. I've never been a tuna salad girl in my life until I made this for a class, and I was like, wow, that's really good. So give this a shot, even if you're not a tuna person. Try it out, see how you like it. If you don't like it, you could substitute chicken for this and make this more of a chicken salad. So like I said, make it your own. All right, so we're moving on to our seasonings here, and we've got about 1/4 teaspoon of black pepper and 1/8 teaspoon of cayenne. And then you add salt to taste. I did about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. So I'm just gonna sprinkle this on here. And mix that all up really good. And then our last step is gonna be to add our olive oil. So we only want about a tablespoon of olive oil. I'm gonna eyeball it. Might be a little more than a tablespoon, but we want about 4 tablespoons of olive oil a day. So this is a great way to get that olive oil in. It's got those healthy unsaturated fats that are really good for our body. And like I said, unsaturated fats are really great for your cholesterol. They help with your blood pressure, and they taste really good as well. All right, so we got that nice and mixed together, and it just looks so pretty all together, all the different colors that we have. And you have the nice little small pieces, so in every single bite, you're getting a little bit of those vegetables. Now, I want to talk with you really quickly just about olive oil. So this is an extra virgin olive oil. That's the one that we recommend. So think about if you had coffee and you brew coffee, you put your grounds in your coffee, and you have a nice fresh cup of coffee. Well, let's say you went and used those same grounds 3 and 4 times over. You would have kind of more just dirty water, right? It wouldn't be as strong, it's not gonna taste as good. Same concept here with your olive oil. So an extra virgin olive oil is gonna be that first press. It's gonna be that first ground coffee that you get. If you have more of it, just your basic olive oil, it's gonna be, after a couple times, they've pressed that olive several times, so you're kind of getting those leftover oils. And the extra virgin olive oil, the reason why we choose that is just the flavor that you get from that. Now, some other buying guide tips for you. We want to make sure that our olive oil is in a dark bottle because that helps to keep it heat resistant. So or light resistant. So think about if you're in the grocery store, it's sitting on a shelf, you've got light reflecting on that. It's going to start to break down that olive oil over time. So we want to use a dark bottle. And then our other step is to make sure that it has a best by date. And so check the back, and it should have some type of indication of when this is going to be best by. Best by doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad after that point. It just tastes best up to that point. So make sure that it also has that on there as well. Other great oils you could use, canola oil is a popular one that we use in Med Instead of Meds. It's affordable. It does have more of a good taste just for your basic flavor profile. And then there's tons of other unsaturated fats you could do, but this is just a great way for you to get some fats into your diet. So thank y'all so much. We look forward to seeing you next time to transition to going med.